live right now. Cindy D with First Blood. Good morning, everybody. Okay, it's Thursday. Week's almost over. Okay. And well, we've covered some news this week. I got a little flack on X already from Buddy about not covering the Kilmar story. For those of you who aren't familiar, what's his name? Abrego, the Maryland man. His first name is Kilmar, and they're not using that in the media because it just doesn't sound good. And we haven't covered it. We haven't covered it as much. On Tuesday, we covered the story of the young thug that murdered a white boy in Texas, and has now bought a house and a new Escalade with his legal defense fund. So, Mario, how you doing this morning?
Well, as well as I can be, I suppose.
Hey, you look like you brushed your hair. That's a start.
Yeah. I haven't had a haircut in a year. All right. So, like I said, I don't know what the deal is. It's just one of those things. It started growing. Yeah. It started growing, and I'm like, I've never had long hair before. I did a long period of time in the military where that was impossible. So
yep.
I just let it go. And I'm just waiting for that first 95-degree day where I basically snap and lose my mind because I'm going to have a heat stroke because this lustrous beaver pelt that is permanently attached to my head forces me to almost have a heat stroke. And in the event that happens, you will see me come on here with a Sergeant Major wedge. Okay. That will be the day. And then I will finally redeem myself in the face of your father. Okay?
Yeah, and I understand. I mean, your father was a Navy man, so, haircut standards, not so much an issue around your house.
Yeah, they're allowed to have a little bit of flair. Okay, you know what I mean? Especially when you're in 06, all right?
You remember, Mario, you remember that Marine at DLI that very carefully kept his hair at exactly the maximum length, and he kept it. Yep. But you looked like a fucking comic book character or an anime character, and that was very much on purpose.
You're talking about the guy who looked like basically he was a fashion model who looked like American Psycho. Marine. Yeah.
Yep. And he kept the boom. Yeah, you know what? It worked for him.
It did.
I mean, he laid more pipe than Western Lumber around the old Presidio, so it definitely worked for him.
That was a major excavation site, DLI, for laying pipe. Okay, they're fresh trenches daily. All right, you see the little flags put out there, marking like there's gas here. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, fresh pipe on the daily.
The old adage was if you can't get laid at DLI, you don't have a dick.
Pretty much.
It really is as simple as, you go do your 7-mile run from Soldiers Field to Lovers Point and back in your Ranger panties. And if you just, pause every half mile or so and pee on a tourist, you're going to get lucky.
Yeah. Plus everyone's basically a geek. Okay. So yeah, it's nerd love central. All right.
You take the nerdiest, you take the smartest, nerdiest kids in the country, and then you put them through a training regiment that turns them all into Street Fighter characters, and and for the first time they're out of mommy and daddy's eyesight and have a steady paycheck, and all of a sudden you just you're hearing brown chicken, brown cow music playing at every corner. Brown chicken, brown cow.
Yeah, I got you.
Speaking of academia and collegiate hotbeds of degeneracy and self-abusement, we're talking about Harvard this morning. Harvard is on the chopping block. Basically, they have refused to comply with the Trump administration changes to the function of DEI and the like, and the government's coming after them. Now, I want to talk about this story this morning for what the story is, for starters, but I also want to take a look at a particular hot take that is, so the take that I'm going to show you on X in a minute is not an uncommon or original one. the version of it that I'm going to show you is one of the most developed versions I've seen. But first, let's take a look at the headline itself. IRS making plans to rescind Harvard's tax-exempt status. So before I get into this, let's clarify something. The tax-exempt status of these universities is very similar to the tax-exempt status of churches. And that's going to be part of the argument that you hear from lefties and some kind of squishy cuck conservatives as well. Well, if you end Harvard's tax-exempt status, the Democrats are just going to come after your churches next. I hear you.
They're already going to do that. They're already trying.
There it is.
So, yeah.
So, and that's something that we've heard over. If you get rid of the filibuster, the Democrats are going to abuse the situation. If you do this, right? And I'll take you back to Merrick Garland and oh God, what's his face? The Turtle Man.
Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell. It's the only good thing he ever did with his life. Blocking Garland. Correct. He said, if you change these rules, we will absolutely railroad you with them. And the Democrats said, no, we want to change the rules. And McConnell said, okay, cool. Merrick Garland is dead in the water. Done. Shut down. And that's a big part of what I want you guys to understand. While it's true, while there is some truth to the argument that, well, if you change rule X, then the other side will use that. Yeah, but here's the thing. The Democrats are always happy to change the rule. Let's not forget, going into the 2020 election, one of the platforms that Biden stood on and the Democrats just railed on because of the current composition of the Supreme Court was that if Biden got reelected, right? This is before, Vice President Spitrose came in and stabbed him in the back, which was new for her, being on the not the receiving end of the backdoor entry. They went on and on about we're going to pack the Supreme Court. We're going to add justices until the Supreme Court is biased toward Democrats, and then in the future we'll just do that again. If we come in and the court has become unfriendly to the erosion of American liberty and prosperity, then we'll just add more justices that are willing to be a new John Roberts or a new Amy Coney Barrett, where they look ostensibly like conservatives and, frankly, are not. They're corrupt.
Two things. One, it is said that pegging is the final realization of feminism. Okay, so that's when you've fully completed the feminist tech tree. All right.
It's not new to Ryan Reynolds, but it is new to Disney.
And also, as for like Supreme Court justices, you might as well, honestly, you might as well just only have like Republicans appoint Supreme Court justices, okay? Because conservatives will do that. Conservatives will do what conservatives do and team balance the game, okay, at any given point and throw votes to the left, okay, for political normalizing or normalizing purposes, okay. Also, Amy Coney Barrett, she's a woman. She thinks like a woman and makes emotional decisions. All right, and Supreme Court Justice John Roberts is a close friend of Norm Eisen, who is basically the leading deep state color revolution operative. Okay, the guy has worked in and out of the State Department and non-governmental organizations for years. He has a footprint in the United States and Europe. He is directly responsible for he was the tool that the CIA used, the guy who wrote the blueprint for overthrowing the legitimately elected government of the Ukraine in 2014. All right. Norm Eisen has hosted Supreme Court Justice John Roberts at his palatial estate in Prague. All right. For a period of like 2 weeks where they discussed fusion of United States law and European law. Okay. It's John Roberts, and John Roberts has been photographed in some pretty comfy looking photos with Ghislaine Maxwell. All right, so John Roberts is completely compromised. I guarantee there's basically Epstein style compromise on the guy, and he is completely controlled by the left. All right,
yeah.
I hate John Roberts. I hate him. Okay, And it was pretty. Sorry to sidebar here, but it was, I instinctively knew something was off about the guy back in when he was nominated to be Supreme Court Justice by the Bush administration in 2005. Okay, Rehnquist had just retired. All right, long serving, like for the first half of my life. Okay, the guy had been Supreme Court Justice, long serving. He retires, and I'm like, oh shit. Well, Bush is going to have to appoint someone who is like Supreme Court Justice plus in this case, okay?
Right.
And this is just after a highly polarizing election. I'm like, man, this is gonna be an absolute political bloodbath on Capitol Hill. These Senate confirmation hearings are going to be wild. And Bush nominated John Roberts, and he pretty much went through without any objection from either side. That's how I knew something was strange about this man. Okay,
and then he went straight to Chief Justice.
Correct. He went straight to Chief Justice.
Why in the hell? Why in the hell is Thomas not Chief Justice? Right.
Good question. Thomas would be a far greater Chief Justice. Okay.
I mean, he's been there for what, 35 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Look, man. I don't hide the fact that I have a visceral disgust of the African American population in the United States, but I do have a lot of respect for outliers. Okay, because I'm not a personal bigot. All right, and yeah, Clarence Thomas is the supreme black man. Okay, he is the ultimate black man, and I would be okay. I would be fine with him as president. All right, I'd be fine with King Thomas. All right, just let it happen. I can have like submachine guns again. Imagine how cool that would be.
King Thomas.
Thank you, King Negro. All hail King Negro.
Man.
I have a submachine gun.
Okay. You forced me to Harvard. My notebook.
Back to Harvard. Okay.
Hang on. I know dead air, but this is too good. I'll have it ready tomorrow.
Okay.
It's just going to be a T-shirt with Justice Thomas's silhouette on it, and it says, "He is Kangs."
I support that completely.
We'll retire on that one. and the other thing you mentioned, color revolutions, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not on my checklist for future deep dives. We're going to have to throw that one in. So, one of our Saturday shows is going to have to be just, hey, here's kind of a review of the color revolutions and help you understand what color revolutions are and how the CIA is involved in them.
It's the
soft for a good show.
It's the soft power way of creating a coup in a foreign country, and well, not just foreign countries at this point. It was also done in the United States in 2020. All right. You create
what the hell do you think is happening with the justice system right now? This judicial coup that's going on, right? The whole universal injunction thing. It is a grossly unconstitutional action being taken by these judges, and half of all universal injunctions ever in U.S. history have been against President Donald Trump.
Correct. In fact, there's already been more injunctions against him in less than 100 days. And by the way, that show's coming up April 30th, 100 days. Yep. There's been more injunctions against President Trump in the first 90 days, all right, in office, than there were in the entirety of the Biden administration. Right? Just to give you some. Just to give you some
more in the first 100 days of this administration than against any other president, and between the first Trump administration and the current Trump administration, between Trump's two administrations, he's just about to cross the threshold. I think he needs 4 more to have had more than all other presidents combined. He's getting close. There's enough of them that I'm starting to lose count, but we're way off Harvard. So the Internal Revenue Service is making plans for send the taxpayer exempt status of Harvard University, according to two sources familiar with the matter, which would be an extraordinary step of retaliation as the Trump administration seeks to turn up pressure on the university that has defied its demands to change its hiring and other practices. Now, I intentionally took this story from CNN.com because I want to see this biased language here, right? Seeks to turn up pressure on the university that has defied its demands to change its hiring and other practices. Okay, briefly, I just mentioned the judicial coup. So there are all these universal injunctions. The most recent and discussed of which is so technically this is a little different than a universal injunction, but courts have ordered Donald Trump to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia? Kilmar. They've said that you have to bring the hostile foreign invader, the illegal alien who is a member of a terrorist gang, back to America.
The Maryland husband and father.
Yeah. And as of yesterday, one of these courts, one of these judges is threatening to begin arresting Donald Trump's lawyers, basically, and maybe even Trump himself on contempt of court charges for defying the order. And they're going, and you're hearing all this nonsense, Trump can't just defy the orders of the court. Okay, couple things there, right? Oath, right? Swore the oath. And part of the oath is I'll follow the orders of the officers appointed above me. But right there in UCMJ, in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, it is very, very clear, right? And Mario and I have both been briefed and trained on this repeatedly. It is unlawful to follow an unlawful order. It's not just that you have the right and the authority as someone who has taken the oath to refuse to follow unlawful orders. You have an explicit obligation to refuse unlawful orders, right? Because we don't want our soldiers to be unthinking automatons. We want them to follow orders, even orders that are terrifying and dangerous, but not orders to commit crimes. And you can always go back to the Nuremberg trial and say, and see, we were just following orders. Now, hold on a minute. There's a reason that we disdain that claim. You come back. So imagine you've got a court that orders the president of the United States of America to go to a foreign country and personally assassinate someone, right? That's clearly not a lawful order, right? So in this case, what they're doing is these courts are attempting to coerce the president of the United States of America into personally giving the order for U.S. military to enter El Salvador and abduct an El Salvadoran citizen.
Yeah, see, that's the best part. That's the best part of it, right? And world's coolest dictator, Bukele of El Salvador, actually put it. He gave the best response as to why he's not returning the Maryland man who is husband and father, right? I love how they haven't managed to be able to worm the term like community leader into him yet, but they're working on it. Okay.
No, anyway, but they have told us that he's a union member.
Great. Is that some of that? So is that some of that top 1% human capital that Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about? Apparently. But Bukele basically stated, he's like, well, you see, he's not actually a citizen of your country. He's a citizen of mine, and I'm keeping him. You can't have him back.
Yeah.
He is a citizen of El Salvador, and he is a criminal. And he is wanted in El Salvador for his association with MS-13, which is a transnational gang that effectively destroyed El Salvador. And I was elected to save El Salvador from them. Therefore, his ass is mine.
Yep.
Watch like Democrats in Congress push forward a bill to give full citizenship to Maryland father and husband. Okay.
So we got off on that rabbit hole because I wanted to make the point. So Donald Trump is, there's a bunch of crying and whinging on the left right now. Oh, you can't just ignore a court order. You can't just do that. You can't just ignore the ruling of a judge. Let me remind you about the eviction moratorium, right? Where the Supreme Court said, no, the president does not have this authority. And, right, it went even further with that, right? So they said you can't do the eviction moratorium. You can't do the student loan repayment. They did the student loan repayment. The Supreme Court said no on that in 3 separate cases. Biden came out and very clearly said, right, he went way further than what Trump's doing here. So what Trump's doing here is saying, you don't have the authority to do this. You are overstepping your authority as defined by the Constitution. Biden came out and said, not just did he didn't just fail to say that the court was overstepping their authority. He went out of his way to say, the court is right on this one. My lawyers tell me that I do not have the authority to go forward with the eviction moratorium, and yet I am going to do it anyway because the court takes time to do things.
Correct. And
by the time they get their shit together and come do something about it, the damage will have been done. By the time the court actually gets their shit together, I will have already bankrupted thousands of homeowners who were renting properties to people who are not homeowners, to the poors.
Using some HC language. Anyway, so yeah, it's bullshit. It's the bullshit philosophy that weak-willed mothers will tell their children, as far as how the Republicans act. So Democrats do something in blatant violation of either the law or in blatant violation of precedent. Okay.
Right.
And then there's always conservatives, all right, like Tom Cotton, okay, who are waiting to make the statement that, well, now that we're in power, we can't do that, or we'd be no better than them. It's the same retarded argument that a weak-willed mother gives her child who's getting bullied at school, like, well, no, if you punch him in the face, that means you're just as bad as he is. You know what I mean? Like that weak-willed fucking schmarm garbage. All right. That's kind of that's the reason I say it is because that's what my mother taught me. And that's why I got bullied throughout all of high school, or all of school. Okay. What she should have told me is basically, okay, they fuck with you, pick up a brick and smash them in the face. Okay. I don't care what the legal consequences are. But the thing is, the Republicans, they don't want to fight fire with fire. All right. So that's what obviously has to change. So if the Democrats are going to abuse the system, then the Republicans had damn well better abuse the system, and you better win. You have to win. You have to understand, now in a multiracial, multicultural democracy, it truly is a zero-sum game. It is winner take all. So when you hold the conch, okay, you better use the baton, okay, while you're holding it, because you have to make as many gains as you possibly can, and insulate those gains against the next party, against the next government that takes power. So.
Yeah. By the way, we'll do an episode. We'll take some time later and basically do a deep dive and talk about every single currently elected Republican that should be reelected in the midterm. And wait. Oh no, that was all of it. Okay, so we don't need to do a whole episode on that.
I count 5.
Like the Anna Paulina Luna's. Okay, so she seems to be good on pretty much policy. Oh, and now she's a grievance studies major demanding special privileges for class categories. Shut the fuck up.
Well, she's an insta-thought. Okay, she's an insta-thought who got elected to Congress, and it's all about her. So she generates drama like every single day. Apparently, she is the most demoralized office of anyone in the Capitol. Okay,
yeah,
you got to understand.
We have to stop letting our young people vote for hot chicks.
Correct. You don't vote for hot chicks. So you have to. I mean, well, I don't know, man, because then on the opposite. I mean, Amy Coney Barry is she she's MILF hot. Okay, I absolutely would. Okay, it's within my age range. All right, but she is trad conservative mother. Like, should be everything. Everything is correct. You know what I mean? She is orthodox, and even the most extreme right wing's views of what a woman should look like, or what a woman should be like. But she even still betrays the base and betrays the president that put her in that office. So just how about no women? Zero women in government.
So so we've departed drastically from the topic, and that's cool. I'm gonna bring it back. Bring it back around. We've already touched on this pretty hard. So you got this cat over on X, Aaron Astor, and he puts it. Here's the thing that we were talking about a minute ago. If this goes through, the next Democratic administration will start taxing churches, and it will focus on the most GOP leaning churches. Yep. So let me touch that real quick. And Sergeant Major's watching this morning. My folks used to go to an Episcopal church, and they were pretty good about going every Sunday. When I was a kid, we went there every Sunday. I stopped going to church a lot earlier than Mom and Dad did. Mom and Dad stopped going to their church after Trump was elected, because the church, one of the big things they did is at the end of the service every Sunday, they would do the prayers for the people. And
the
back then, do what?
Election 1 or 2 or 3?
The first one.
Okay.
Right after the first election. They used to do the prayers for the people toward the end of the service. And it always included praying for the president and praying for him by name. And when Donald Trump was elected, they stopped they omitted that. They stopped praying for the president. That was one of the little subversions, right? But you see it all over the place. And there's a reason that when we look back, and I'm right, the money that Harvard gets, right, as a nonprofit, is supposed to be contingent on the public good or working in the interest of the public. And part of that is you're not supposed to be doing partisan politics, right? In theory, if you preach partisan politics from the pulpit, your church loses their tax-free status. But Democrat churches, especially Black Democrat churches, do it all the time. There's a reason Obama went to churches and spoke from the pulpit on his campaign trails. There's a reason Kamala Harris did it, right? Especially Southern Black churches. They are more than happy to preach radical, far left, goddamn America. You remember that one? Radical, far left sociopathy from the pulpit, and they suffer no consequences to their tax filing status. I guarantee you get a preacher up on the dais in any conservative, mostly white church wearing a MAGA hat, that church is going to be bulldozed by the end of the month.
Financially, not literally. Unless there's like a series of Teslas parked out front, MAGA hat on the pulpit, and greater than 50% of the congregation is driving a Tesla. Yeah, it could. Yeah, that could happen. Yep.
So,
but Sergeant Major is correct. All big church organizations have been infiltrated by socialists. Yes, they have. Subversion of Christianity was absolutely crucial. All right, for what is essentially the communist takeover and subversion of America. All right, make no mistake, that's what it is at its ideological core, and that's the problem with people not knowing their history, because they fail to see the clear parallels between what occurred back during the Cold War, back at the turn of the century, with the influx of communists into this country. They fail to see how it relates to today. All right, and that's part of what our Saturday show is about.
Yeah, well, I mean, Nietzsche was 100% correct when he said God is dead. Oh, but there's a whole lot more to the statement, because the point was, if you kill God, as in destroy the churches, destroy the institutions, remove them, or even just hobble them. Something must replace them. And in this country, throughout the 90s, throughout the 80s and 90s, the church was degraded and degenerated, and attendance fell dramatically. And the result is that they've erected the cult of woke as the replacement for God, and started worshiping blue-haired child mutilators, and in place of an actual moral authority. And Nietzsche was 100% correct on that. And that part of that treatise was also the prediction, right? But this is long before World War I or II. And Nietzsche very, very clearly predicted, listen, if this whole communist thing ever happens, right? And the prediction was before communism was a thing. If you destroy God and replace him with the worship of the state or the worship of the self, the result will be millions and millions of dead bodies.
Yes. And furthermore, it is impossible to remove God, okay, and not replace him with something. The human mind requires something transcendent, okay, to aspire towards. And if it doesn't have that, that's how you get, well, just look at a lineup of look at a police lineup of Antifa people. That's what happens. You get the spiteful mutant. You get the spiteful mutant class is what happens when you remove God from the public sector, okay, and don't replace it with something. That's what you get.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about having the
correct
the image
Danny.
of the self, the image of the object self, the target self. I mean, that's Kierkegaard, straight from the Sickness Unto Death and the Vital Work of Selfing. Having that model, and for Kierkegaard, the model was Christ, and everything you do is to be like Christ. But at the barest minimum, you have to have, okay, this is my objective. This is what I want to be, right? I want to be a husband, a father, a landowner, right? I wanted to be a husband, a father, a landowner. I am, right? And that's not because I decided one day, hey, this is what I am. It's because I decided one day, this is my objective, and stop me at your, bar me at your peril, and here I am. So,
Unverified says, Unverified says nobody ever gets quotes right. Well, yeah, that's just, the human experience is basically one gigantic game of telephone, okay, dating back to 5,000 years BC, okay? That's just what it is. Generation to generation, we carry trinkets and pieces of what once was. Perhaps we don't know what it really means anymore, but it's pretty and we like it and we hold on to it, okay?
And that's why it's still illegal to carry a druid egg into an Italian court.
Absolutely.
People take that shit seriously. So basically, Harvard is a DEI nightmare, and the correct answer is to defund them. Another deep dive we're going to have to do soon is on how, brother, we've got our deep dives planned out for the next 2 years, by the way. We're just going to have to pick them off the list.
I mean, we do a show where we ostensibly talk about the events of the day or the events of the week. Okay, so we're talking about current events. As for past events that were meaningful, there's no shortage of that.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah, actually,
could there ever be?
You and I need to do a tech call. Okay,
I'm still talking. I'm just going to go get a cup of coffee. I can hear you. I can talk to you.
I brought my refill out to the desk.
All right.
Mario's right. We're doing the show like this. There is an infinite number of things that we can do the deep dive on. I mean, near infinite, not actually, but anyway. He and I are going to have to do a tech call where we discuss how we plan which of those shows comes next, and I'm not going to put out a schedule and say, okay, we're talking about China this week and the French Revolution, and then this, and just say, okay, here's the schedule for the next 2 years or whatever, because there's the algorithm, there's the zeitgeist, and we want to be able to abuse that. And in ways like last week, we're talking about the tariffs on China and everything. And so on Saturday last, we
Plus,
did the
I
deep
demand
dive
the right
on
to change my
China.
mind.
So picking what Saturday's show is going to be is always going to be in part related to saying, okay, which deep dive is most relevant to the current news cycle and offers our audience the most useful information within the current media landscape and the current landscape of what's going on geopolitically, etc. And part of my math also has to be which one is going to give me the clickbaity headlines that are going to be most effective at getting eyeballs on the show. Because let's be real, right? I was just talking about the vital work of selfing. Part of the target self that I have right now is I want this channel to make enough money that I force Mario to quit his job. Hopefully, get Cameron back in the mix again, and start doing more of the old school, like the SpaghettiOs, the coffee film, the Pizza Ninjas films,
Yeah.
all those shorts and eventually bigger productions, and that stuff mostly costs time, but money buys a lot of time.
It is true. But one of the reasons I'm glad I met you, Chris, way back when, is and what reinforced why you were you're going to be one of those guys that I know for the rest of my life is when we met in Georgia to film that ill-fated short film. All right, and I met the whole circle, which I call you guys my Jowga boys. Okay.
I've still got
like,
all the footage from that thing. We just never finished the end scene.
I know, it's fine. Anyway, but I just I'm looking around and like there is a lot of creative mind, like a lot of creative human capital, like an unnatural amount of creative human capital in this small group of people. Okay, like we could literally with enough money we could do anything. You know what I mean? I'll lead my own color revolution. I'll leave. Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
And okay, we're way off topic now, but I can promise you this: our next film production will be a resource production. And for those of you who aren't in the industry, what that means is you basically, instead of having a script and saying I want to make this movie, and then going and finding everything you need to make the movie, we're going to sit down with an inventory that says, okay, this is what we have available. What movie can we make out of it without spending any money on, without buying props, without renting costumes, without renting camera equipment? Okay, I have these cameras, and because today that's a shitload of camera equipment. That's cameras, that's lights, that's microphones, that's professional equipment. We have it on hand. So when I say resource film, usually what that means in the industry is you're going to make a cheap horror movie where you mostly rely on bad lighting to kind of cheat your special effects.
Yeah.
I mean, we can make a pretty convincing action movie, and the only real work that we have to do to get the special effects in is to sling it through After Effects or something to add muzzle flash to the gunfights, muzzle flash and
say
bang bang sounds.
Before I wanted to briefly touch on Iran for a moment. Okay.
Yeah, before
I get there though, I would give you two points here. One is I think Chris that you underestimate how much post-production time and effort it's going to take to do the things that you envision. Mm-hmm. And second, it would be Cameron needs to settle on, like, he needs to have a 3-take limit. Okay, when it comes to directing.
that you're right there. As far as what the post-production is going to require, I don't underestimate that. I did when we did that film 5 years ago. And if I'm being honest, back then what it was, it's not so much that I underestimated what the post-production was going to require. I started a new job right after that, and that kind of messed with my time, my available time. And we never managed to get back together to do the reshoots that we needed to do. And I just got tired of messing with it. I mean, I have a nearly complete short film cut out of that we'll watch it together sometime. And like I said, I've got all the footage from it.
Yep.
Just got to take the time.
Unverified Bear is claiming that I am sitting on a personal fortune of $5 million in goat bouillon cubes. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
I can get behind some goat.
It's a lot of flavor. It's a lot of flavor.
Goat is delicious.
Okay. So
I've told this story on air before, but I had a buddy back when I lived in Savannah. We used to do Aflac. We both had our separate franchises, and we would go and tag team customers doing Aflac. Morris was an Orthodox Jew, and he was like hardcore Orthodox. He had 2 kitchens, one for meat and one for milk, right? Hardcore Orthodox. But once a month, he would cheat just a little bit. We'd go out for Indian food, and he would eat curried oxtail. That was his one guilty pleasure, was curried oxtail.
Did he go home immediately after and strangle a chicken over his head to alleviate himself of his sins? Or no?
Not every time, but
Okay.
I saw him do it twice.
Gotcha.
and that's not a joke, guys. That's a thing.
Yes. It's an annual tradition. We scapegoat the chicken. It's
Aaron has 2 kitchens. Yeah, because you can't mix meat and milk in and keep kosher.
In a kosher
you keep kosher.
Yeah.
You cannot consume the meat of the cow with the milk of the calf. The cow with the meat of the calf.
At an esoteric level, Judaism is all about dichotomy and separation of one thing from another. Okay, yeah. It is from God to man, man to woman, Jew to goy. All right, it's all about dichotomy. That's why they're so prone to communism. Okay, or that's why communism was birthed from their minds. All right, at least from the worst. All right, yeah. JD Vance versus the Neocon Boomer Hawks Honor. Okay, so let's talk about Iran for a moment. You've probably heard a lot in the news about increased talks of doing targeted strikes on Iran or war with Iran over their nuclear weapons program. Right? We've recently seen a major increase in deployments of like B-2 Spirit bomber aircraft, which is the United States' premier method. At least as far as fixed wing aviation, it is our premier method of reaching out and touching someone. Okay, so big deployment of those to Diego Garcia, which is ours or Britain's or Mauritius's or whoever's island in the Pacific. Quite like, and by all accounts, it looks like we're building up for a huge strike against Iran. All right. I also find it rather strange that the British sold Diego Garcia they gave it to them to Mauritius. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Okay, it's a series of islands off the coast of Madagascar that the British gave Diego Garcia to. I have no idea why. Mauritius is really, it's nothing more than like than a convenience store for white people to stop at while they're doing white people things like circumnavigating the globe. But whatever, I digress. So Britain has washed its hands apparently of any future strikes against Iran. This is all centered around Iranian nuclear weapons program, okay, which has been a bugaboo in the news for virtually 2 decades at this point.
Yeah.
And it's the same cast of people who've been calling for the bombing of Iran since John McCain was still alive. Piss be upon him. But yeah, now there's also a group of people, Trump himself, hopefully, okay, but I don't know. Anyway, you've got Besant, Hegseth, and Witkoff, okay, 3 cabinet members who are trying to push for a new deal, basically a new agreement with Iran to either structure or shut down its future uranium enrichment. All right, and then on the other hand, there is the Zionist pro-war lobby that wants war with Iran. All right, war with Iran would be a disaster. Iran is not like Iraq. All right, Iraq is a lot of open terrain. All right, it's surrounded by ostensibly allied governments to us that give us staging grounds. All right, um, Iraq was easy peasy comparatively speaking to Iran. Iran, you have to enter it. You can't enter from the north. You can't. We'd have to make a deal with the Taliban. All right, to wage a two-front war against Iran if we were to do that, which the Taliban would agree to for the right price, of course. But it's a very mountainous country. All right, trying to navigate it on foot or by vehicle would be a disaster. There's choke points everywhere. They're much smarter and have much better technology than the Iraqis did, than ISIS do. All right. In fact, some of the worst implements of death that were used to target U.S. soldiers during the Iraq War, they all came from Iran. All right, so they're clever people, they're smart, and they have a lot of military capacity. Plus, their air defense systems are basically guaranteed by Russia. All right, attacking Iran would be a World War III event, and it would be the end. It would be the end of America. Okay, we would not, even if we were to win that war. Okay, America as a premier world power, or as the premier world power, it would not last. That would be the end. Okay, that would be the end of America as we know it. Nobody would use our currency as a reserve currency anymore. That would be it. Now, making a deal with them is good politics, okay, and it's also good diplomacy. That's what needs to happen, because declaring war against them is just a non-starter. Now, why? Who? What kind of madman? What kind of psychopath would push for war against a country that, even if we won, would be the end of American power and prestige globally? Well, probably the same group of people who advocated for the since 9/11. All right, who advocated for the overthrowing of countries that do not have a Rothschild central bank system, like say Iraq or Syria or Libya or North Korea, right? um, all these countries that are not part of the global banking system always seem, or that attempt to press their own currency based on a gold standard, are always overthrown. Um, I find that rather odd, right? There's only two that remain: Iran and North Korea, from the original list of seven that former General Clark so famously talked about in that TED talk, right? Um, but yeah, so it's completing the Zionist World War cycle to allow the establishment of Greater Israel. That's what we're being cajoled into. All right, and it is that group of usual suspects who basically control the White House, control foreign policy, especially, that are pushing us towards those ends, and that has to be resisted by all means. Okay. Um, and like as Forrest Gump said, that's all I have to say about that.
Well, the article you sent me, J.D. Vance versus the neocon boomer hawks on Iran policy. Okay, let me do this real quick, because this is something I was thinking about as I was reading the article earlier. Iran claims that they're enriching uranium for the purposes of energy production, and to be fair,
that may be true, but you would also be stupid if you be given that Israel and basically Israel's client, the United States, wants to destroy you. You would be retarded not to be thinking about developing a nuclear program. So of course they're developing a nuclear program. Of course they want a nuclear weapon to guarantee to basically. Why is North Korea not toppled? Because North Korea has nuclear weapons. Everybody knows that if you don't want to get fucked with by the United States, you've got to develop a nuclear weapon and prove that it works. Once you do that, you're basically free of the United States' terror. So,
well, let me. Yes, but I was going a different direction with it. Iran says that they're doing it for energy purposes, and Mario's right, and that's part of what I was about to get to. 100%. I would take anything that the Iranian government says with a very large grain of salt. That said, however, the existence, the development, the deployment, the use of nuclear weapons as an existential threat broadly has done almost irreparable harm to the development of nuclear energy generally, right? All the greenies hate nuclear. Nuclear is the clean option, right? Solar, inefficient, expensive. Wind, inefficient, expensive, right? Nuclear is the option that we have with our current technology. Now, I hope that something like hydrogen, the graphene stuff, one of those newer developing technologies is going to move in the right direction. I would love to see us have unlimited energy. That'd be freaking amazing. But unlimited energy is a pipe dream, at least for now. Maybe there's some magic technology in the future that just says, "Oh, hey, all the lights work forever now, no matter what," and that's a game changer, right? But your Star Wars or Star Trek nerds that are communists because Star Trek said, we can have replicators that just spit food out and nobody ever starves again, whether they work or not. Yeah, you're missing the whole magic unlimited energy angle, right? The only reason you have the Communist Federation in Star Trek is because unlimited resource, 100% unlimited resources. Yes, you can redistribute wealth infinitely if that wealth
energy
is infinite.
Yeah. Yep. So,
and I mean, there's a deep dive for you: currency and witchcraft, because currency, all minted coin, is essentially a magic talisman that represents the energy that went into producing what was traded. Currency is witchcraft. That's what it is.
You can do that deep dive, and I'll just sit here quietly. But I'll just blurt out heresy, okay, occasionally, all right, just to provide the counterpoint. Okay, we have.
Okay, Mario, I'm gonna cash app you $20 to go down to the Spirit Halloween and pick up an Inquisitor costume for that show.
Yeah, just see me walk on camera with a Pimpernel fucking costume. Yeah, that'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
All right,
but for real, one of the things that's holding us back globally is the fear of nuclear power and the reluctance of the world to develop nuclear energy. And like I said, I'd rather see hydrogen or something else. There are obviously concerns around nuclear, not least of which is the ability for research and development into nuclear enrichment and production to veer off into the weapons side. But I mean, come on, hydrogen bombs, lightning guns, electric fences. Have you ever seen what happens when a windmill hits a dude in the face? Well, now you have drone swarms, right? Yeah. There's not energy is itself creative and destructive. It just, Mario was talking about that dichotomy, and male and female, etc. But good/evil dichotomies do in fact exist throughout nature, and there are very, very few things. The pen is mightier than the sword. Okay, have you ever tried to write a poem with a sword? I mean, I can sign my name with a 240 Bravo. You ever stab somebody in the neck with a pen? Dual purpose, right? That good things can cause harm is true. But that the good thing can cause harm cannot be the only reason that you ignore the good thing, right? Chocolate can make you fat, but you also need to feed your soul. You can't just live on protein powder and your whole life, right? Just because there is harm doesn't mean that there is not value and benefit. You know, if if we were completely risk averse to the potential harm effects of everything that has potential harm effects, you wouldn't be watching this show right now. It's that simple. If you say, well, this could hurt somebody, so I'm absolutely not going to do it, then you take no risk, you receive no reward, and we're all still living in caves without fire.
Indeed. Well, we got a few minutes here left. Why don't we just scan through these comment sections because we've ignored the audience. All right. So Crackshot says the unholy alliance between socialists and Muslims is disturbing. It is, but it's basically just one-dimensional thinking. Basically, it's get whitey. Okay, that's what they care about is get whitey. Okay, what comes after they haven't thought that far ahead. Okay,
I missed Crackshot.
You're dealing with children. All right. Unverified here was dropping some fact checks. Okay. He said that the British base, he said it's pronounced Mauritius. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mario, while you're doing that, click on one of those comments. You should be able to put them up on the screen from where you're at.
Because I'm not logged into Rumble while I'm doing this. Okay. Unverified says it's a British base, but the island belongs to Mauritius. Always did. Technically, you guys are there under 100-year lease circa World War II. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. But I just don't understand why the British government would like pantomime cucking for no reason. I didn't get that. I didn't really understand the reasoning behind it.
Oh no, it's not for no reason. It's the British government. Cucking is what they do.
Yeah, apparently. Yep. And hatred of their own people, of course. All right. Aaron Olson asked, do you want to trust the quality and safety of a nuclear reactor in that region? Nations have a vested interest in not going cheap on their nuclear programs, okay, for obvious reasons. Plus, Russia would clearly be fact checking. Russia would be, proofreading their work on that. All right.
Plus, if they build a shitty reactor and it blows up and destroys their country, problem solved.
Basically, yeah. All right. And we are on the 5th and 6th generation of nuclear reactor development. It can be done, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Pitt Danny mentions that Jimmy Carter found his political end in Iran. Okay, so that as a warning to President Trump. Okay, yeah, it's a pitfall. Avoid it.
Well, and you know what, there's another lesson that Trump can take from that as well, because Carter fucked up so much, so severely. He is instructive that a president can be awful. He can make a lot of mistakes and be well forgiven for them, but there is a line, and that line, it may be different now. I mean, look at Biden. Biden didn't get reelected, but he, the Afghanistan withdrawal disaster was hardly even a campaign issue by the time we got to the actual election. And in fairness, that had a lot to do with Kamala stabbing him in the back and taking over, but getting Americans killed in a foreign conflict, especially needlessly in an obvious blunder, that's a great way to, be the only president who was ever, or the only presidential candidate who was ever replaced after the primaries.
Yeah. Jimmy Carter wasn't a bad man. He just wasn't presidential material. That's all.
Right.
And you got to think of the zeitgeist at the time. This is coming off of, Nixon's impeachment, which could be its own deep dive. Okay. The political ousting of Nixon, the plot to dispose of him. And then his temporary replacement.
The proto-Trump.
Correct. The proto-Trump. Then his temporary replacement.
Basically, they did to Nixon. They successfully did to Nixon what they just tried to do to Trump, and the biggest difference was social media. You had guys like us on the internet who were able to, whoa, they're lying. That's a lie.
Yeah. Well, the powers that be, all right, and their media apparatus, which they use to speak to the public, decided at the time that, due to the chaos of the Nixon administration, which whatever. Like, I understand they're speaking from their perspective. The chaos of the Nixon administration. Now would be the time that we have an American president who's like a folksy, down to earth kind of normal person per se. You know what I mean? And that's the zeitgeist that they used on the American people in 1976, and it worked. All right, because people are clay that can just be mold when you have the right tools. People are clay that can be molded to your desire.
That's very much the same. That's very much the same kind of message that they used to get Biden in office. Bring this guy in. He's normal. He's down to earth. He's Uncle Joe.
It will be the strategy.
The same campaign as Carter for Biden.
Which will be the Democrat strategy for whoever they choose in 2028. Okay, guaranteed. Guaranteed the strategy is basically a Jimmy Carter type character. That's who they're going to go for. At least the party elites, that is.
Yeah.
And given super delegates, that's all that really matters. But I digress. That's a totally different topic, and we are at 8:30 on the mark. Chris, you want to?
Yeah, buddy.
We got any closing remarks?
I know we've got shit to do today. So you guys have been great this morning. We appreciate y'all watching this morning. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow morning for Firearms Friday, the usual time, 07:30. And we're doing MK Ultra this Saturday evening to get ready for Easter Sunday. So y'all be safe out there. Thanks for watching. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.
Ciao. I don't want to announce the deep dives in advance. I want it to be like those shitty toys that kids open where it's like some globo homo animal, and you never know what's inside of it. You know what I mean? That's what I want.
So MK Ultra will be the last one we announce.
MK Ultra is the last one announced. I want it to be like those disgusting globo homo toys where you have no idea what's inside until it opens. Okay.
Perfect.